Welcome to Empowered by Iron, the podcast for female strength athletes by female strength athletes. We are your hosts, Dr. Kristen Lander from Fiercely Fueled Nutrition Coaching and Mary Morton, PhD candidate and weightlifter. Together, we are Empowered by Iron.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Empowered by Iron. Today, we are going to be talking about the specifics of hiring a coach. And if you've been listening to our podcast a while, or if you have binge listened to it, you know that a long time ago, we did a series on your first meet for weightlifting and powerlifting. And we said in those episodes that you should just do a meet and not worry about if you have a coach or not. But if you've kind of passed the point of being a casual lifter and you know that you like competing or just that you like trying to excel in the sport, whether or not you compete, there comes a point where you're going to need a coach. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome, Mary.
Hello. I'm ready.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about why someone might need a coach, because there's a lot of different reasons why you might need a coach.
Yeah. So first and foremost, what happened with me is for weightlifting, because it's so technical, I didn't know how to do the lifts. So for one reason you need a coach is you need coaching on the technical aspects of the lifts.
Yep.
So snatch, clean and jerk, bench, deadlift, squat, any of those. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to think that it was less important to have a powerlifting coach, but that was before I started trying to compete in powerlifting. And then I realized really quickly that there's definitely some technical aspects to it that having a coach or having someone show you how to tweak things makes a really big difference. And then, for Olympic weightlifting, it's so hard to, at some point, your strength doesn't really matter if your technique is not right. And I am like a textbook example of why you should learn with proper technique, because I learned with not great technique and then tried to get better in the sport and kind of stalled out. And then it's been hell trying to fix some of those really bad habits that I had. So you will.
But you're really strong.
Yeah, but I'm really strong. But just my technique has not caught up to that yet, but it's getting much better. And so a coach definitely helps with all of the lifts, I think, in the technique, right?
Right.
I think
you can only watch so many Instagram videos and try to correct your form.
I was really
one person.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's only one person that I know of that has self-taught, maybe two, I guess. Two people I know that have self-taught Olympic weightlifting, and they're really good.
Yeah.
But everyone else, no.
You did a really good job, though, of watching YouTube videos and kind of like figuring out like kind of what to do. I mean, you did pretty well. You figured out what to do enough to know that you liked it and you wanted to get better at it.
Right. And then I found my coach, and that was right. What I needed. But I needed to futz around with it at first.
Yeah. I think also a coach is really good for like forcing you to stick to a plan. Like so many people there's so many resources out there now, which is awesome. But I feel like every day I see multiple posts on social media about like this exercise or that exercise and like it's easy to kind of try to add in too many things or feel unsure of exactly what you should be doing, right?
Right. Well, and you see things that are really important for those athletes and how they need to correct something or strengthen something, but you may not necessarily need that. Like you may be really stable in the overhead position and really suck with your hip mobility, and these people are doing overhead stabilization techniques and their hip mobility is fine. So like the coach is really good. If you have a really good coach in powerlifting and weightlifting, they're able to look at you lift and correct you with other exercises.
Yeah, they can identify
about the forcing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can identify your weaknesses probably better than you can and be able
Yeah.
to like focus, okay, this is top priority, this is second priority, kind of go down the list in terms of developing a plan for you. So my plan has a lot of technique work all the time, which I think is pretty standard for Olympic weightlifters, but sometimes mine feels like really remedial.
Well,
Oh,
and then they're also really good. They're really good for making you do the things like you don't want to do. That's why I think I only know a couple people who have actually been able to self teach themselves is simply because they're very um objective. They look at their lifting and they're able to fix it and they take all emotion out of it. And that's why you need a coach typically. But then they also do the work. They say, okay, I need to do this. It's going to suck, but I'll be better for it.
yep.
And they're able to program them for themselves. But usually you need a coach to be like, hey, yeah, I know you want to max out every day, but your technique is so horrible that we need you to be doing like 30% of whatever and get your technique right, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes you need that third voice coming in saying, hey, 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 what's
Yeah.
wrong with you?
For
Fix
sure.
you.
And I'm the type of athlete who I need a coach. Like, not some people need a coach to like motivate them or whatever. That is not me. I need a coach to make sure that I'm not doing too much because I'll try to do all of the things if I'm left to my own
Yes, you will.
devices. So I
Yes,
need
you
a
will.
coach to like pull me back and say, no, don't do all this stuff. And I do really well when I have that. When I don't have that, I feel very lost. I try to do way
Right.
too many things.
Well, I'm
I
a little different because I don't have a coach for motivation, but I don't need someone to tell me I'm doing too much because I'll do the reason I love having a coach is I don't have to think about anything.
yeah,
My programming shows up, I take videos, I send my videos in, I get critiques back that I work on the next week. It's like a no-brainer for me, and that's why I love having a coach because before I would go in, I do exactly what you said. There's like 1,000 resources, so I'd go in and look at all the resources and try to do all of them, and I was just killing myself and not making any progress.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I think that that's just the thing is you look at there's so many resources, and then here's the thing that lifting, whether it's Olympic lifting or powerlifting, it takes so much time and patience for you to be able to see the benefit from what you are doing. So it's really easy to say, okay, I'm going to do this plan or whatever, and you maybe stick to it for like 2 to 4 weeks, and then you think, well, I'm not really seeing much of a benefit from it. And then like switch plans, which it doesn't work that way. I mean, it could take months for whatever you're doing to actually pay off. So I think that having someone that knows like, yep, this is what you need to be doing and let's stick to it is really helpful. I think
yes.
too, when you have a coach, you're less likely to skip training sessions, right? Because you don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
But like really, honestly, my coach, I mean, he writes my programming and that was time that he spent doing that. I don't want to waste his time. I respect his time. So I'm going to make sure I get everything done, especially if I know that there's a plan. I don't want to screw up the plan. So I'm not going to miss a training session, or I'm going to, if I have to, I try to let them know in advance. Hey, I'm traveling next week. I'm going to only be able to train 3 days. So let's adjust accordingly.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
I only have a few people in my life that if I were to disappoint them or let them down, I just don't know if I could get through it or like it would be hell to get through. My coach is one of them. So
Yes.
if she has something programmed for me and I don't do it and I'm just like, I don't want to do it, I know that she's not angry. She's just disappointed and that kills me. So
I'm the
I'll
exact
do
same.
it just so I don't get the disappointed eyes.
Yeah, I'm the exact same for sure. Yeah, because I feel like you only have so many times of not doing what you were supposed to do before your coach is kind of going to be like, this person doesn't really care. And then if
Mm-hmm.
you're not showing them that you care, then why should they care? Right?
Mm-hmm. My coach would just kick you off the team. That's what happens.
Yeah. Don't
So
get
I don't
kicked
want
off.
that to happen.
Mary,
I don't want to
don't
get kicked
skip
off.
your ab exercises. You're going to get kicked off.
Don't skip
Just
them.
kidding. I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
I don't skip them all
Uh,
the time.
so you had a interesting take on when to hire a coach, right? So we know why to hire a
Yeah.
coach, but when should you
Yeah.
hire a coach, or specifically when should you not hire a coach?
So when I first started powerlifting, I thought I had a pretty good program going into my first meet. And it was about a week or two out that I realized I had no fucking clue what I was doing. And I started to look up coaches to potentially help me or who could help me like figure out the day plan for when I needed to lift. And that was probably the worst time in terms of from the coach's perspective for an athlete to reach out to you like, hey, I've been training all by myself for the past, 8 weeks or whatever, and I have a meet next week. Would you want to coach me through it? Most coaches will be like, you know what? You have a great time. Why don't you talk to me on Monday
Yeah.
after your meet? You don't want to surprise your coach. Your coach is there to help prepare you for the meet. And that's not just the day of, not just there to write your openers. They're there planning every step of the way so that you can be the best you can on that day. So if you reach out to a coach, not only are you going to be really testing their patience 2 weeks out, but it's going to take away from their athletes. So they're likely to say no, but they'll be happy to take you afterwards so they can build you an entire plan. So when not to is 1 or 2 weeks out for a meet. Even 3 weeks out for a meet, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Soon. You know what? I have that happen with nutrition athletes as well, or nutrition clients. Is I'll have someone contact me and they have a meet in a week and they need to make weight and they want me to help them, and I'm like, I mean, if it's like a pound or two, and we have a 24-hour weigh-in, but I mean, I've had people contact me that need to lose like 8 pounds and it's a 2-hour weigh-in. And I'm like, I'm just not, I can't help you with that because I don't know you. I don't know what you've been doing. I feel like I might be setting you up for an epic failure in terms of we'll get you to make weight. That's no problem. You might not perform very well at all. And I don't want to be responsible for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And plus a coach and athlete relationship should be very, I don't know, I wanted to say personal, but that's the wrong word. But it's very intense. Like if you actually get a good coach, really you should try to stick with your coach as long as possible. Because the more that they're with you, the more that they know you as an athlete and the more they're able to cater your programming towards you. Typically when you get a new coach, you're on a very general program to begin with, just so they can get an idea of who you are, how do you train, what are things like. For example, for me, I was on a couple of programs, a couple cycles with my coach, and it seemed every time I'd do this cycle, I would complain about not feeling great, not complain, but just like make comments about like, this just doesn't feel right. I don't feel amazing. And I would always get injured on those cycles because my body was just so out of it. So finally we went through a couple of those and figured out what the problem was. In this last cycle, I made the same comment. I said, my body just feels like I everything hurts all the time. And I get that I'm supposed to, but it feels like an injury type hurt. So I got a week of a deload and then we went right back at it and I feel fine. I feel great. But it's a long-term relationship. So if you're going in 2 weeks before or a week before, you don't have the time to really think about, is this coach for me? Is this the good situation for me? Because you're running from desperation.
Yep.
Running on desperation. You need someone.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, a coach will... Together, you and your coach will learn how your body responds to different things, and you can modify your training just based on how your body's feeling and just past experiences. And so, yeah, if you've got that relationship established with your coach, then it's things just like, it's like the more your coach knows your body, the more you learn your body, I think the better the relationship gets, the better
Yeah.
the outcome, really, because
The better the
your
outcome.
programming can be truly tailored to your needs, which is, it
Mm-hmm.
takes time to learn that.
Yeah. So if you're
So
looking for a coach, be prepared to stick with them for a little while. You see a lot of athletes coach hopping, and we could probably talk about why that is. It could be that they really just had a shit luck with coaches and they just got quite a few bad ones. But a lot of the times they probably found an okay coach or a decent coach or even a great coach, and a lot of that is reflecting upon you. But we'll talk about
yeah.
that.
Okay. Well, so how do we find coaches? I think
Wait,
is a
we didn't even
really
finish when. So I think
oh
when, make sure you give your coach time. Like if you have a meet, don't come to a coach and say, I'd like to do these meets. You kind of want to go to your coach and say, hey, I'm interested in competing. These are the meets I'm thinking of. If I was your athlete, what would we do? How would we do it? And don't be afraid to ask those questions, which is will lead into the how. But the best time to get a coach is when you have enough time to prepare for your meet and you guys make that decision of when to compete together.
yeah, or even if you don't have a meet coming up. I think
Yeah,
that's even especially like a fantastic time. You don't have a meet on the schedule, so you've got time to play with things.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So how to find a coach is an interesting topic because there's a lot of different ways to find a coach. But USA weightlifting, if you're in the US, or if you're a power lifter, USPA and USAPL, all of them have club finders on their websites. So gyms that have certified coaches and they have the necessary equipment and they have certain standards that they have to measure up to. I think that's an excellent way to find a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Our local
Mm-hmm.
coach, a local coach.
Yeah, and when you find those gyms in your area, or even if they're an hour or so drive away from you, that's not horrible. You'd be like a semi-remote athlete. But go to those gyms and lift with the team, lift with the coach. Figure out if this is what you want. And it's okay if you go to 4 different gyms and 3 of them suck, or 3 of them just aren't up to what you thought a coach-athlete relationship would be. But shop around. This is your future. I mean, figure out what you want. You're not going to go to a car dealership and buy the first car you sit in. You're probably going to go sit in a few of them, test drive a couple of them. That's exactly what you're doing here.
Yeah, I think also observing, go and train with the
Yes.
coach, but seeing how they interact with their other athletes, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn
And
a
talk
lot.
to the other athletes.
Yeah, definitely. Because there are certainly, I've had friends that had certain coaches that they just loved, and that coach, their style of coaching was just not for me. It just wasn't going to fit. It's a very personal thing. It's the same as like finding a doctor or a hairstylist, right? Like so not everyone's going to fit with everyone. You have to find someone that it feels like the right kind of relationship. Some people are really motivated by like their coach kind of being a dick. And that's fine if that motivates you. And there are coaches out there that are that way. That's not really something that motivates me. So I don't really appreciate it when a coach is like overly rude. I'm still a person.
I like thinking that my coach and I are on the same team. And if I do things or she does things that doesn't help progress the team together, then I start questioning, why am I here? For example, if I were lifting and she came up and just said, that was the shittiest snatch I've ever seen you do in your whole life, that was terrible, I'd be like, okay, well, and so what? I mean, you didn't give me any pointers. Yeah. There's nothing. You didn't come up and say, okay, that could have been better. Here's why. Now, I'm fine with that. I can take criticism like anyone else. But what I can't take is just insults to be insults. It
Right.
doesn't help anyone.
I totally agree. Like, okay, tell me a few things that I did wrong and how to fix
Right.
them. And then like maybe something I did right. Did I do something right?
Yeah.
Like anything? Not nothing. Okay. Which I mean
Yeah.
that definitely I definitely have that happen. I'll get actually just posted something in my Instagram stories the other day. Like I sent a video to my coach of my, I don't remember what it was. And I was like, I know something wasn't right about, like, I knew something wasn't right about the lift. I just couldn't identify exactly what. I told him what I thought I did wrong. And he sent me back like this list of what I
You
did
got a
wrong.
list.
I got a list. I mean, it was just like, okay, well, that sucked. Like, I actually I respond really well to coaching like that. I mean, I do like to, if I did something right, great, but like tell me everything I did wrong so I can fix it. I don't really respond well to the type of coaching where they're just like clap and cheer no matter what. Like that's not really helping me get
Mm-hmm.
better. Like I appreciate the support. That's fantastic, but if you're not giving me steps that I can use to get better, this isn't really gonna make me better. My coach is
Yeah.
hard on my technique, and in Olympic lifting, that's what I need because my technique needs improving. And it's good. We have a very good coaching relationship.
Yeah.
So if you can't find a local coach or a semi-local coach, because you can find someone, like Mary said, an hour away, or in my instance, it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. I found a coach who I really liked. And so I was basically a remote athlete and would go, once a month or so and train with him and the team. And then he picked up and moved out of the country, but that's okay. We'll
So
forgive
now
you.
you're fully remote.
Now I'm fully remote. But so there are other ways to find coaches. And the way that I found my coach was at a meet. And in fact, he wasn't even there. It was one of his athletes, and I didn't have a coach. And we were kind of talking, and she was telling me about her coach, and he sounded like someone that I thought I would really like. So I went to go visit, and I was looking at a couple of different coaches, and he just clicked like immediately. But I think that being at a meet, and a lot of and we talked about this in our first meet series, a lot of that if you show up to a meet and you don't have someone to help you, the community is so amazing, whether it's weightlifting or powerlifting, someone will help you out. If they find out you don't have a coach, someone will help you out. And that's a really good way to identify maybe that person might be a good coach for you, or maybe they would have a recommendation for a coach for you. But if you can see how they are handling their athletes on meet day, that might give you some insight into whether, like, do you want that person as your coach potentially? I think that's a really good way to find someone.
I agree. And for me, I use the old Instagram.
Yeah.
Mine was kind of more, it was a very lucky situation. I just noticed, I saw this girl lift at nationals, and I thought that she did a really good job. And I just remember her singlet. Like, that's what I remember most about my coach, was she had this singlet that was different than everyone else's. So I started following her on Instagram, and I noticed in her stories she would post every once in a while about athletes. And she didn't have any like coaching inquiries on her bio, or like she didn't own a gym at that point. So I just thought, I'll just reach out. And she got back to me. I reached out to 3 different coaches, and she got back to me within the hour, wanting to set up a phone call so we could discuss like what my goals are. Why did I choose her? Like, what's going on? So I told her, I was honest. I said, I reached out to 2 other guys, 2 other coaches, I haven't heard back from them yet. And we just like Kristen said with her coach, we just clicked. And even though we're remote, she lives in Texas, I live here, we over the phone were able to identify that we had the best interest at heart of each other. So there we go. Had a coach.
Yeah. I think that if you're just picking someone off the internet, It's really
Yeah,
important to
don't
do some.
just pick someone.
Yeah, it's really important to do some research on them. Like you had obviously been following this person for a while. You kind of knew a little bit about this person and a little bit about their lifting. I think like if you do, pick a few people off the internet and have conversations with them, ask them about, what are their expectations of their athletes? What what sort of programming do they do? Are they going to completely tailor your programming to your specific needs? Or is it more of like, the whole team does the exact same thing? I think asking a lot of those questions so that you know their expectations of you and vice versa is really important. And it's okay
Yep.
to talk to a coach and then think, I didn't really like what they said and talk to someone else. It's fine. And then go back to that person. I mean, it's your, whatever coach that you're going to hire, they want it to be a good fit too. They don't want you to waste their time.
Yeah.
So think that it's really important to do your research. And then another thing is just because someone is a really accomplished athlete doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good coach and vice versa. There are some fantastic coaches out there that are like, okay lifters, but they maybe haven't been, national or world champions, and that's okay. As long as
And
they
there are
they
some
know how to
world
coach.
champions that just can't,
Yeah,
they can't coach.
absolutely. Yeah. So I think that and then also making sure that the person has like that they're not overextending themselves by taking you on. Or if it's someone that it does have a local gym, that they're not traveling all the time, that they're gonna be around to coach you is another really important thing. So like just find out as much as you possibly can about the coach and go from there.
Yeah.
So what happens if you've had a coach for a while and you feel like something's not right? What do you do?
So, first and foremost, a while isn't 6 weeks, a while isn't 12 weeks. If you actually found a good coach or a coach who is certified, who has other lifters, who the other lifters like, you guys kind of all get along very well, you can't change coaches and automatically that makes you better. You have to make sure that before you decide to change coaches, look at yourself. If you're not making the progress that you think you need to be making, first of all, how long have you been lifting? If you made a lot of progress from the first year of your lifting, but you've kind of tapered off in the next year, I mean, that's me right now. I still make big technical changes, but my numbers haven't gone up to what I would like them to. But if I keep pushing my technique and doing what my coach has been telling me to do, they're going to go up. I mean, they're already better. They're already going up, but they will eventually meet what I want them to be.
Yeah.
So you have to look at yourself first.
Yeah, if your progress stalls out, it's not necessarily your coach's fault. Some of that just happens in lifting, and especially I feel like Olympic weightlifting, but also that sometimes is an age thing too. That sometimes that is going to play a factor, and not saying that you're not going to break past this plateau, but these things happen and it's not necessarily your coach's fault. I think sometimes people put too high of expectations on their coach. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like we want to hold our coaches to a high standard, but sometimes you think that the same thing with like diet. Like you think that like one thing or one way is going to be like the magic ticket. And when it's not, sometimes people look at, oh, well, it's the coach's fault as opposed to, am I doing everything that I can be doing in training? Like, is my nutrition on? Is my sleep on? Am I recovering well? Am I doing all of the things that I need to be doing outside of the gym so that I have success inside the gym? And I think a lot of times that if we can really reflect on ourselves and look at ourselves, we might see that sometimes we are the problem, or maybe there's not a problem. Maybe this is just something that's happening. But I would say, yeah, like don't always blame the coach when stuff like that happens. But there are times too when, if a coach is, especially if you have a remote coach and they're not responding to your texts or emails or questions. I had one coach a while back who had so many athletes. I'm 99% certain he didn't know my name, which is a problem, right? Like you can't have that many athletes that you're no longer providing an individual service if that's what you're claiming that you're providing. So that when in instances like that, it's fine to, just say this isn't really working for me anymore. And I'm just going to kind of move along and leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Don't go to your coach and say, I found another coach, I'm leaving. The first thing you should be doing after you've done some self-reflection and making sure that you're doing everything you need to do in and outside of the gym, then you go to your coach and you say, hey, we need to talk. Something's not right. Something's not working. Something feels off, whatever it is. And if they're a good coach, they'll sit down and they'll listen to you. And then they will work towards whatever it is that you feel is a problem. Now, they may see it totally different than you. They may not think it's a problem. And they may have a really good reason as to why whatever it is not a problem. And here's their reasoning. And maybe that's enough for you to be like, okay, I see your point. This is fine. And maybe together you guys can come up with a good solution and you can stick with that coach. Now, if you've gone to that coach and then that coach says they're going to make changes and doesn't make changes, that's one thing. If you go to that coach and they are demeaning or aggressive or rude or any of that towards you and your concerns, that's a problem. If your coach ever makes you feel less than, or if they ever belittle you, especially in front of your teammates, just leave. I mean, you can send them an email and say, hey, I didn't appreciate this, and this, and I think it'd be best if we split ways. But what you don't want to do is go to your coach and say, hey, I'm leaving you. I found another coach, and then just break ties. Really, you can talk to them a first time, and if it doesn't change, go to them a second time and say, hey, we tried to work this thing out. It's like a really long breakup. We tried to work this thing out. It didn't change. I'm going to go and look for another coach. Maybe even ask them if they have a recommendation for a good coach. And then if they're a really good coach and it's a really good scenario, they can even talk to your new coach and tell them some of the things that they've learned about you over the course or the time that you guys have had together. But you don't want to surprise them. You don't want to be that person who's just a dick and just coach hops because your coach is not doing what you want them to. Oh, they're so mean. I can't believe that they programmed this and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Like if you just don't like their programming just because they're making you do things that you don't like, that's
the point.
That you might need to be, there's probably a reason they have you doing those things. And generally those things that we don't like doing are things that we need to be doing. But if your coach is making you feel uncomfortable or you feel like there's just a personality conflict, don't feel bad leaving. The coach isn't for you. And I think you can determine that pretty quickly usually. So don't put up with that for too long. Because
that's usually a really quick identifier.
Yeah, for sure. And similarly to what we talked about, maybe was it last episode, and like sexual harassment and different things like that. Like don't put up with that kind of stuff from your coach for sure. That's definitely a clear sign you need a new coach if they have unprofessional behavior.
Yeah, immediately. And then make sure that you report that coach.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. Yep. So that's the why, when, and how of coaching and how to find yourself a coach. And
so I really think that finding a coach and finding the right coach can make just a huge difference over the long term for your training. So if you've passed that casual lifter and you're now, like you want to compete and you want to do well, this is something that will absolutely take you to the next step. You will probably train harder than you thought you should be training, which we'll talk a little bit about in our next episode. But I think it's a really important thing. At some point in everyone's lifting, eventually getting a coach is just a huge game changer. So if you're kind of on the fence about it and you want to improve and you are competing, do it. You will not be disappointed.
Agreed. It was the best decision I've made when I switched over to weightlifting, was find a coach that really understands me and listens, which was huge.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it?
That's it.
If you guys have any questions, if you want to find a coach and you still are unsure about any of the things that we said, please shoot us an email at empoweredbyiron@gmail.com. We are happy to help you find whatever resource that you need for this very important decision if you're at this point in your lifting career. If you haven't already, go join our Facebook group page, Women in Strength Athlete Resource. We're all about athletic nonsense on there. It's fantastic. Lifting questions, technique assessment, and all that good stuff. It's all focused on our strength athletes, both training and nutrition. And finally, check out our Patreon. If you want to support this podcast and you like what we do, even $1 a month donation towards this podcast really helps us grow. So thank you guys so much for being here with us and loving our show. We love you guys so much, and we're just so happy to create this content for you.
All right. We'll talk to you guys in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Bye.